senior teachers at the VIHE, lecturing and giving her association during the retreats in Govardhan. So she has so kindly agreed to be with us for 2 sessions related to Vrindavan experience. Jagattarini is the typical person who lives in Vrindavan wherever she is. So please, Jagattarini, please share with us the beautiful atmosphere of Sri Vrindavan Dham.
Can you hear me first of all?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Vaskatya Desha Tarini Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So it is my good fortune actually to be speaking to you today and in a couple of days. Here in Perth, it's Shivaratri, which is a day that I have a special fondness for, because long years ago I went to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house on Shivaratri and made prayers to the Shiva Lingam that presently was worshipped in a little temple on the side of the wall there. So Shivaratri is, for me, it is a Vaishnava occasion. So being asked to speak, I wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to be speaking about, whether I was supposed to encourage you all in how to stay connected to Vrindavan when you're far away, or whether I was supposed to speak about being in Vrindavan. Any message? In 1992, and that's how many years ago? 30 years ago. It was Kartik, 1992, and I received a letter from a devotee who was staying at that time in Sydney. She had been living in Vrindavan as I was living in Vrindavan, and now she was staying mainly in Australia. And she sent me this letter, and in the letter she said something like, so you're so fortunate to be there in Vrindavan. You're able to walk to the Jamuna. And in those days, you could even take a clean bath in the Jamuna. So you're walking along the bank of the Jamuna, and the cows are there, and the Jamuna is just flowing so peacefully, and there's Madan Mohan temple, and you climb up all the stairs, and you go and you see the deities, and then you go to Sanatan Goswami's Samadhi place. And she continued for a whole 2-page letter. And the irony of it was that as I read her letter, I was astonished to understand that for that moment that she wrote it, she was much more in Vrindavan than I was. I was thinking about what I'm doing today. How am I going to get to this place on time? Do I need to buy this? Do I need that? How am I going to clear up my room? What is this? What is that? My mind was full of the practical daily affairs. And so with a mind full of practical daily affairs, it was experienced by me at that moment as if I'm the one who's not in Vrindavan. And she, at the moment she wrote, she's the one who's in Vrindavan. because she's got clear memories of these places that she has visited or she's heard about. And here I am, I'm too busy to go and see those places because I have so many things I have to get done. And the funny part is that even if the things I have to get done are hearing, chanting, reading Shastra, and so on, when I get caught in the having to get them done part, even though I'm in Vrindavan hearing, chanting, reading Shastra, I'm not fully in Vrindavan. That's not to say that even being a quarter in Vrindavan is priceless, because it really is. Just there's something in the atmosphere, even when it's covered by layers of material, illusory circumstances, still Vrindavan is, in essence, Vrindavan. So I thought to myself, perhaps the best thing that I could do for you, and not knowing who you are or where you are, what part of the world, how old you are, what's your attention span, what's your circumstances. I would try to give you some, what I would call broad general hints or tips in how you can restore your attention, especially since you're students and you don't want to miss out on the full magnitude of this opportunity of study with the VIHE. So I've developed this simple assisting aids. I've developed and put effort into creating a series of different methods by which I can restructure my thinking when I find myself getting too caught up in the practical, in the emergencies, or in my health, or all the chaos and confusion in the world. In Vrindavan, sometimes one forgets about some of those things. Perhaps one forgets about the rest of the world. But when one's health goes down, it's a challenge. So the first thing I thought of when I was trying to put together a series of thoughts on what I do was that I asked myself, why? Why am I missing Vrindavan right now? Or why is it that right now I'm just feeling so far away from Vrindavan? Or why don't I even care about Vrindavan right now? What's going on? And I've taught myself over many years to try to answer those questions without any blame. By that I mean that sometimes we may think to ourselves, why am I not chanting good japa right now? And instead of saying an answer like, because my mind is caught on this thing over here or that thing, I will say something like, because you're always distracted and you just can't concentrate and you've always been like this. I don't know if you sometimes do that to yourself as well. But that isn't the kind of questioning I'm referring to. I'm referring to a question that you would ask a friend and say, why do you miss Vrindavan right now? And the other person might say, because it's such a beautiful place. Krishna seems so real there. Here in the world around me, I tend to get caught up in technology or the news or my family or whatever, and I forget. Whereas there, I'm supported by the transcendental atmosphere. So that answer, that question and that answer will evoke, it will bring up something of Vrindavan right then and there. The second thing that I recommend, and I'm sure that many of you do this already, is to keep some sort of a journal, to keep trying to deepen your concentration by learning how to record, to speak, to share what's going on. It's difficult, I know, because we're living in an age where everything goes very fast. And so also in our philosophy, we understand that everything is temporary, and we see that today, yesterday's gone already. So what is the point in keeping any continuity in time? So the answer is that we're on a spiritual journey. And it's sometimes 10 years from now or 20 years from now, you pick up a journal that you wrote, even if it's messy and you couldn't really say very much. And it brings back to you your spiritual progress, how you got from this point to that point, to this point, to that point. And that's very reassuring, because you often see that you've made a great deal more progress than you sometimes feel that you've made. So keeping a journal, especially a journal wherein you write your thoughts about Vrindavan, or, as I said, you're asking questions, why? That can be very, very beneficial short term, and even more beneficial long term. So the third point that I've always been a fanatic about is keeping pictures on the walls. And of course, for our younger members, that also includes keeping pictures on your computer, because nowadays it seems people don't print their photos so often. Now, I gave a couple of pictures to Rameshwari to give you an example of keeping pictures on the walls. If she would like, she can put up number one.
Okay,
and if not, I'll keep going.
So she will be doing.
Okay. Will I see it as well on my screen?
Excuse me, I apologize, but I haven't been informed about this before, so
Okay,
I
no
don't
problem.
know
No
if
problem. We'll keep going. Don't worry.
that we are using for the streaming.
No, so let's keep going. So keeping pictures on the walls. The other night I was visiting my husband. He has a little cottage on the property where we live, and I was visiting his small little cottage, and I was very astonished to count how many little pictures he had on his wall. Now, quietly to myself, I was having a little laugh, because when we came first to Perth, which was in 1996, 28 years ago, I had so many pictures that I had printed in Delhi when we were living in Vrindavan. Pictures of trees, pictures of Vaishnava acharyas, pictures of samadhis, pictures of temples, pictures of deities. And at that time, when we came to Perth, I stuck them all over my wall, so that in my room at least, you could be in Vrindavan. And my husband, at that time, my husband said to me, why are you putting so many pictures on your walls? And I said to him, because this is really where I want to be. And he shook his head, because he was more of a shastric person. He spent more of his devotional time in his chanting and reading. And when we came to this COVID period where we haven't been able to travel outside of Western Australia for the last 2 years, I noticed the pictures going up on his wall as well. And he has little pictures, I had big pictures, and his little pictures are all pictures that he himself has taken over the years of Vrindavan. So pictures, pictures, pictures in his room, so many. And when you go in there, you feel like it's bright, it's colorful, and it captures some of the special essence of what is Vrindavan. We can take pictures of the deities. We can get them online. We don't have to be a photographer. But keeping as many pictures as you can is very helpful. And another one that I find really interesting is keeping quotes on the walls, finding quotes that you like, finding quotes that inspire you, and typing them out or writing them out, and either laminating them or not laminating them, and putting them on the walls as well. When Srila Prabhupada first was setting up the temples in ISKCON, he also wanted quotes on the walls, because it was the habit of the Gaudiya Math to put, for example, the Shikshakstakam in big stone panels carved on the walls of the temples. And they would also put key Bhagavad Gita verses on the walls. And if you go in Vrindavan to Vamsivat, the place, the banyan tree where Krishna played his flute and called all the gopis, you will find there that there are stone slabs all around that compound of the Gopi Gita, the songs that the gopis sang when Krishna left them to test their love. He disappeared for some time. And to get him back, to call out into the darkness of the forest, hoping that Krishna would return, they sang a series of really beautiful, personal, very, very dear to them songs describing Krishna. And those same stone slabs encircle the Rasa Leela courtyard to this day. So there's a purpose in this. It's like I notice, and I think I'm not alone in this, that when I look up something on in a video on my computer, there's a section that goes down the side that shows me all these other videos that I could watch after I finish this one. And it's very easy for me, if I'm not very careful, to flick open one of these ones and watch them after I've watched the one I'm watching. So why do I do that? It's because they're there advertised, and I wouldn't necessarily open them just by the picture, but the heading, the words, the title of the video is calling me in. Come here, come here. Put this into your brain as well. And And that's what's happening with the quotes on the wall also. That we see them every day. We walk here, we walk there, we have these quotes on the wall. We don't read them, they're just there. But it's some very difficult moment. We know where to turn for some very careful inspiration and guidance, because the quotes, they hold some kind of a message that now we're feeling the need of. So I have quotes all on my walls as well. And I find I really enjoy actually looking in the Bhaktivedanta database and finding new ones. I'm never quite sure how to find them, but if I find one, I keep looking. It's always possible to find them in the texts that you're reading and studying. Something that jumps out at you. It touches you in a particular way at a particular moment. And so catch it. And I know people who put them on little index cards. They put verses, as you may already do, and they learn verses that way, but they also keep them there so that they can refresh their memory. So I like to keep quotes about Vrindavan on my wall, and they give me, what do they say? They give me kind of like a reassurance, a confidence that actually everything's going okay. And I guess the last thing I wanted to mention, it's not exactly a hint how to stay in Vrindavan, but I think it's also really important. And that is to expect the ups and the downs of your life. I was reading recently about a devotee. She was a very, very well-known model in Europe before she became a devotee. And she said that once she was doing a modeling job in which she was wearing diamonds. And the diamonds that she was wearing in that job were worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So she said that there were guards sitting beside her on either side and before her and behind, and she couldn't move without them following with her, because the company, obviously the owner of the diamonds, knowing their great value, did not want anyone to steal them. So this really struck me, that if we have something we value, such as if we're trying to become more and more Krishna conscious, we value those moments, those experiences when we felt Krishna was real, Krishna was near, that I'm making some progress, that one day maybe I could become a good devotee. We value those moments, and we should guard and protect those moments by keeping them, like not throwing them away. And how do we throw them away? Well, our habit, our mind's habit, is to treat everything that happens to us as something that happened and now it's gone, and what's next? That was nice. Now what? We don't want to do that. We want to grow in a way that we understand that anything we have to do with Vrindavan is like the diamonds that model was wearing. She didn't own them. They were priceless. They were so valuable. But she was allowed to wear them. But they had to be guarded at every moment, or protected at every moment. So we need to understand that we're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be times when we even doubt everything. There's going to be times when we feel that we can't really make it. There's going to be times when we feel that the trouble involved in being a devotee is perhaps just more than we can manage. All those things will come sometimes, and they will also pass. And it will be by the strength of these diamonds, these precious moments that we shared together, either together physically or together in spirit, or they just came from somewhere in us. It will be these special moments that will keep us strong and keep us coming back, to Vrindavan. So I had one last question for myself, and I'll ask it also to you. So, okay, there are times when I feel just fabulous. I feel like I'm going to be spiritually successful. I've got so much service. I love my service. I'm so happy. My life is moving forward in every way I could imagine. Those are up moments. Then there's times, as we were describing, which I would call down moments, when we feel that there's a blanket loss of all my interest and enthusiasm, and I feel depressed, and I don't even want to chant my rounds, say, and so on and so on and so on. Those are down moments. But I find that the hardest moments of all are not the ups, not the downs. They're this middle where you just don't care. You just don't care. You take it or leave it. You feel like your spiritual life, not very enthusiastic, not very interested. And those moments, those are the moments that I find the most uncomfortable of all. Because in those moments I feel not even afraid. I don't feel anything. Now, I'm revealing to you so many, what I call it, so many personal insights, which I'm hoping in some way will be valid and valuable for you. So I was asking myself this morning, so what do you do when you have one of those flat, lethargic periods? And my answer was to myself, I find some sort of something to do. Like I look around and I clean my room. It's not a directly devotional activity, but I create an atmosphere that when I come up again into some moment of strength and enthusiasm, I'll be ready to take off because my environment will support me. So it's as if I'm almost, I would say, it's as if you're sort of stepping backwards and just finding what you could do in your ordinary daily life that would help to support your attention and your intention. Like sometimes I would take a shower, or I would just try somehow to increase the mode of passion so that this mode of ignorance level would subside. So just, I'll complete this and then I'll ask you if anyone has any questions. So I was just thinking how when you go to Vrindavan, we all go to Vrindavan in a taxi. So we are not the driver, we're the passenger. And the driver is driving. Now, if the driver is falling asleep, do we feel anxious? I do. And if the driver is looking out the window all the time and something passes, instead of keeping his eyes on the road, do I feel anxious as the passenger? I do. And if the driver is picking up his phone and he's got one hand, one finger on the wheel and he's doing something with his phone, but he's the driver, do I as a passenger feel anxious? Definitely. So in my journey of Krishna consciousness, going to Vrindavan, I'm the driver. I'm the driver. I'm not the passenger, as in the physical going to Vrindavan. But in my advancement towards Vrindavan, I'm the driver. So here I am driving along, doing something silly. And who is the passenger who is seated right beside me, watching my every action? Who is the passenger? And if that passenger happens to be a transcendental personality, I think that in some way they may also feel a little nervous when they watch us if our driving is not correct. So the point that I was reflecting on is that if you're driving a vehicle, you have to keep your eyes on the road. And a sane driver accepts that. It's prerequisite. I have to continue to keep my attention on the road. I can't lag and go off to sleep without the risk of an accident. Similarly, in our Krishna consciousness, we have to learn how to drive our Krishna consciousness by accepting that I keep my attention on the process of growth. It's a hard fact, but if we look at somebody who's a driver, they can't say to us, but Mataji, you know, I'm a new driver, so I just like to look at the road sometimes. No. They have to keep their eye on the road. And so likewise, I tell myself, you have to keep your mind on your growing Krishna consciousness. And where are you going in the taxi of your life? I'm going to Vrindavan. So that is, in a nutshell, what I wanted to share with you. Thank you. I think we have some time if anyone has any questions.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, I have a question. Thank you for the wonderful session. I have a question on the last part. Theoretically, I know all these things, and we hear them again and again every
Yes.
day, almost every day, that we have to keep our eyes on our driving, that we are driving safely. But when
Yes.
it comes to practical application for me, I tend to forget all these things, and I don't pay attention to my chanting and my spiritual activities. I don't do consciously still. So this is
Are you going to ask me how you can do it all right from now
yes,
on?
yes. This is what is a problem.
Well, I think that somebody who is trying to make progress in almost in anything, but particularly in Krishna consciousness, is going to see more and more defects in what they're doing. They're not going to see more and more free of defects because they're getting more and more serious. And if they're not getting more and more serious, which is sometimes the case with all of us, they're going to see more and more laxity. And that's going to create its own kind of anxiety. Am I right?
Mataji, I think in my case, this is not so. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But in my case, this is not so. I'm actually relaxed, not paying attention to my devotional activities, not paying attention to my chanting. Theoretically, I understand all these things very nicely.
But if you understood them very, very nicely, they would affect you. They would affect a change. So when you say I understand them very nicely, that means that they're sitting neatly in your head, but they're not yet deeply activated upon. What do you think?
Yes, this is what I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
So then the question is, how do I get to the next level?
Yes, Mataji, this is my question.
Well, the simplest answer, although it may or may not be available to you, is to find somebody that you can meet or online or hear from or something who is on that different level. And by their company, what happens is the next grade up becomes open to you. You become aware of it. And then when that happens, when you start to realize that, oh, there are people who are so much beyond my advancement, and I like them. I like the way they are. I'm going to have to try to find out how I can do that. And what happens is it personalizes what you already know. You start needing to use what you already know. And bad habits are very comfortable, like old shoes. And new habits are like new shoes that give you blisters. So sometimes the shoes have to be broken or even stolen before you'll be ready to create a new habit, which is a level higher than what you're already practicing. So the risk with taking courses and learning and memorizing is if you think that that's the whole process right there. I've got 99%, it's like going to school. I've got all the best grades. I know all the quotes. I know everything. I've got a photographic memory. I'm ahead of everyone. then you need to meet a real Vaishnava, and you'll see that no, there's something I'm lacking. How does that sound?
Thank you, Mataji. That was very helpful, Mataji.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances, Mataji. Mataji, thank you so much for sharing such wonderful hints and tips for us to feel that we are in Vrindavan. Mataji, you told us how to catch the quotes, but would you like to share some of your quotes on your walls, Mataji?
I gave one to Rameshwari. I don't know what the technology is here, but I gave one to her just before this seminar. Is anyone able to post that?
Yes, Mataji, we can see it. It's in the group.
Okay. Can you read it? I can't see it. I can only see.
Okay, one second, Mataji. Let me just pull it up.
All right.
Upon returning to the spiritual world, Krishna, gladdened to see his dear devotee, opens his storehouse of rasa with the following sweet words. Oh friend, I have been carefully holding this storehouse for you. You alone have the rights to it. Rejecting me, you fell under the spell of my energy of illusion. Continuously, I have shown great regard for you. As you have attained this by your own efforts, I am extremely pleased. Serve my ever-fresh, pleasurable form and play with me in the endless ocean of bliss. Do not fear, do not lament, for you have attained eternal life of bliss. For my sake, you have cut all chains of material attachment. I will not be able to repay the debt of love you have shown. Be naturally satisfied in your service. Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita.
This is the last, I think it's the last prayer in this book, Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So in that particular book, he's taking us on the journey of a jiva going home. He uses the different levels of bhakti from Shraddha and then he goes through Vaidhi Bhakti, which is rigid, so rigid it makes you feel like you have no hope in the world of ever becoming a Vaishnava. So he describes all the rules of Vaidhi Bhakti. Then he describes what Raganuga Bhakti is like when one is now spontaneously attracted to Krishna in his beautiful form. And then he goes on to describe what it's like at the platform of Bhava Bhakti, where there is no more acquiring no more acquiring knowledge, because all knowledge is already there now. Now it's about tasting that knowledge. And then he goes up to the platform of Prema Bhakti, where one is eligible to enter into the spiritual realm. And then he summarizes his subject very beautifully, and he ends the book with this quote. In other words, to give us an insight into the process of bhakti, almost you could say how far there is to go, but also you could say how wonderful it will be when we finally attain that point where Krishna becomes pleased with us, fully pleased with us, and invites us to enter into that eternal Vrindavan. So I have other quotes. I didn't have any others with me at this point, but I try to find quotes that either make me feel more humble when I think I'm special, or they make me feel more encouraged when I feel hopeless, or they touch me in some way and give me some encouragement. I have quotes from Srila Prabhupada and also quotes from Bhagavad Gita and also quotes from other Vaishnava books like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And also bhajans, they're also very nice.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for sharing your gems with us. They were quite priceless. I have a question that externally I seem to be doing all right. I studied, I'm doing a lot of other things devotionally.
Yes.
But things really happening at the heart level. I feel that internal growth is not really happening. So what should one do for that?
It's a really interesting question because it's a little bit like the idea of a beggar, right? A beggar is so low on the social status scale that he watches all the people come in and out of the Banki Bihari temple, and he stretches out his hand, and he's needy, and people walk by, and some of them give him something or not. Now, when he's feeling sad or desperate, anyone can see why. His situation is so imperfect. But if somebody becomes famous, a famous celebrity, for example, or they become incredibly rich, or they're already really quite beautiful and people adore them, or they're a powerful, good leader, they have some excellence. If a person who has some excellence starts to feel empty and his life is meaningless, it's more confusing, because he has all the things that the other man is thinking that if I had that, I'd be okay. If I had that, I'd be okay. If I had that, I'd be okay. I have them all, and I'm still feeling there's some dissatisfaction in the heart. And this stage can come to a devotee also. And it's really very important at such times to address it. Otherwise, what can happen is you're going up, 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 and then you quietly recede down, 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 down again. So for me, those moments where I feel like I'm doing everything and I've got everything and I'm not satisfied, they prompt me to ask those questions. Well, what is lacking? And you'll have to come to a point where you see that what's lacking is not what you can do. What's lacking is something that you need to be given from the other side. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur talks about how we are all of us as living beings, we're always inadequate, we're always needy. And so we convince ourselves that doing such and such and such and such will remove that inadequacy. And it does to the outside world, but it may not on the inside, because we desperately need that connection. Now, last night I was getting ready for this program and I had my phone and I went to set up something and I saw that it was down on charge. And so I had to recharge it. We all know that. That's a simple thing that happens every day. But we also need recharging. And sometimes that recharging doesn't take the form of doing more of something. It takes the form of actually coming in touch with the fact that I feel kind of I don't care on the inside. Something's not charging right. And it can be very useful, by the way, because you can turn it around and say, really, I haven't done anything. So Nityananda Prabhu says, I take care of the ones at the back. And our society says, move to the front. The ones in the front are going to get taken care of. The ones back there, well, no knowing what's going to happen to them. If we don't have enough to go around, they're the ones that are going to get it. So we rush to the front. We rush to get as close as possible. It's innate. But when we realize that Nityananda Prabhu, he takes care of the ones who feel most starved, most needy, most unqualified, then this moment of recognizing some disqualification in ourselves is an opportunity to go to the back. Or in other words, internally, not jump out of your position and run away, but internally to pray that actually I feel like I haven't really accomplished anything. And so my position, you have to help me first because I'm most in need of help. I was thinking I was doing okay until I realized this, that now I'm the one that needs help. Please, please help me. Disregard all these qualifications because they're not enough. They haven't actually got me to the point of surrender, full surrender to you. Does that make any sense?
Perfect sense, Mataji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. How are we doing for time? Do we have any more questions?
Mataji, Jagattarini Mashi, Hare Krishna. Thank you for this wonderful class.
Thank you.
Can we try to share the photos that you had
Yes.
shared? Can we try to share that?
Yes.
Yes.
The first one, I think it's a picture of what my room looks like. I have a little sleeping room. It's actually the closet of the master bedroom in the house that we bought. And the master bedroom became an art room. So this is my room. It's that wide. It's like a train compartment. And when I moved into this room in 2002, I put those pictures up on the wall of the different Vaishnava acharyas or their samadhis. And they've been there ever since. Now, many of those places have been renovated since the time that I placed the pictures on the walls. And many days I forget even to look at the pictures. But if any one of those pictures falls down, I become very anxious because they've become part of my infrastructure, my mind, you could say, looking at them. They continue on the wall further. So that's the first picture. And the second one, if you put that one up, this is what I do when I get really, really, really bored or restless. I paint rocks. Actually, I've gone through a phase of painting rocks, and I would paint messages on them to do with Vrindavan. So that when I couldn't do anything else because I wasn't in the grounded enough spirit, I would make these and give them to people. Or sell them because we're trying to raise some funds, like most people, to improve our property here. So that's one thing that always would calm me down, to go and write something on a rock. And I don't have here, but I also, actually I can show you one when we come back on. I also like leaves. So yeah, that's another thing that I've been doing. Next picture. This is my husband's room. If you want to zoom in close, you can see tons and tons and tons of pictures on the wall. And this is only his altar. He had been worshipping Gauratai deities for many, many years. But this year, this time in Perth, he felt that perhaps the Gauratai deities could come onto the main altar in the house. And instead, he put tons and tons and tons of pictures everywhere. So he offers flowers to the pictures. He doesn't do the same routine of puja that he was doing previously. And he's studying the Chaitanya Charitamrita at the present time. working on trying to create, I would guess you could say, a syllabus for teaching. Are there any more? That might be it. There, that's one of my quotes. And you know, you can do these things in Vrindavan as well. I mean, by that I mean you can look at Vrindavan in all sorts of different ways. This is here, this is a leaf. I don't know if it shows back the front on the screen. And I can't fix it if it does, I think it does. But this says, Vrindavan is most incredible. So this is a leaf from a tree in our garden. I just stuck it in a heavy book and pressed it dry and wrote on it. So I'm a good example of somebody who doesn't have very good concentration. And so I use other things to help me to remember Vrindavan. Any more?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna, am I audible?
Hare Krishna, I can hear you, yes.
Thank you for such a beautiful class. It was really very heart-opening, Mataji. So my question is like, suppose we live in Vrindavan, like for
Yes.
at least for some 2 years like that, and
Yes.
knowingly, without knowingly, we have hurt some plants or insects, something like that, step on it, walk on it unnoticingly, or even before knowing that each and every plant, each and every tree is some or the other personality who is meditating on the land of Vrindavan. If we have done some offenses to those living entities, so how do we rectify that?
We apologize and pay our obeisances because we've been allowed some good fortune to live in Vrindavan for some time. And Vrindavan is such a mysterious place because it's where the material energy and the spiritual energy touch each other. They touch in Vrindavan. And so because they touch each other, you've got both the material things and the spiritual things, and they connect to each other. So sometimes it can be very bewildering in Vrindavan. Is this spiritual? Is this material? I don't know. So then what I learned to do, at least I would say, is mentally to make some kind of an attempt of like an apology for my unintentional clumsiness. Because I don't believe you're going around Vrindavan stomping on living entities. I think that you're probably going about your daily life and inadvertently something happens. So in such a case, Krishna is very merciful. But we try to keep that mindset always that I'm fallen and grateful. That's a healthy way to be in Vrindavan. We may lose it sometimes, we may forget sometimes, but that's our return to place. That I'm just so grateful that I've got this time to be in Vrindavan, and I'm trying to create for me impressions of Vrindavan that will last me my whole life, whether I'm there or not. So anything that happens in Vrindavan that affects you, good or bad, can be one of those things that you'll keep for the whole rest of your life.
Mataji, thank you so much. Because once it happened, like during the retreats,
Yes.
got the service of taking a few pictures. So I was so very enthusiastic, and Burijan Prabhu and His Holiness Satchidananda Swami Maharaj. So we went to the a place where there was a reserve forest. I was just very excited for the service, and I just ran over the plants to take perfect pictures.
Oh,
And recently in 10th canto, we studied that Brahma prays, even outside the Vrindavan, I want to be a stone. And we studied that Uddhava, he turns to be a plant, and there are so many personalities who are residing near Govardhana's plant. So after studying this, I felt really very sad, and I felt very fearful. Oh my God, what I did during my service, knowing without knowing I did so many nonsense. So I was really very afraid of this. Mataji.
well, you know, little children. Have you seen a little child recently? Sometimes they bring them to the temple. Sometimes people have little children at home. And little children do all kinds of things. They pull things off tables. They sit down in the wrong place. They take things out of cupboards and throw them on the ground. They cry and disturb people's attention. They scribble on the walls sometimes. They do all sorts of things. And the parents usually, especially in India, reasonably gentle with their children and patient. Not because their child has done something amazingly good, but because that child is still a child. And so childish behavior is acceptable for a child. Now, if you find a 25-year-old pulling things out of the cupboards, stomping around the room, acting, you will think something must be mentally wrong, because 25-year-old doesn't do that. 5-year-old does that. So it's also an opportunity to realize that we're just babies in spiritual life, and to think Krishna must be more kind than a father would be, a good father. I mean, not a horrible father, a faulty father, but a really highest quality father. Krishna's millions of times better than that. So he accepts me in my babyish, childish ways. And the only person who probably doesn't accept me is me. Because I don't want to be seen as a child. I want to be seen as a very organized, responsible person, because that's what I want to become. And we will become that. But just at this point, we might still be a little childish. So we may stomp on the plants. We may not be able to appreciate that the dust is sacred dust, that the residents of Vrindavan, that the monkeys are special monkeys, and all the rest. You may not be able to recognize it yet. But as we advance, and you know that may take many, many lifetimes, but as we advance, then these things will all become very clear to us, and our devotion will mature. In the meantime, we do the best we can.
Thank you, Mataji.
Vrindavan is most incredible. Anything else?
Thank you, Mataji. This was such a wonderful class. I was just wondering how Krishna answers all your queries through their pure devotee. This is incredible, Mataji. I don't know if they are really meant for me or no, but it was really amazing, Mataji. I have been hearing. I'm so sorry, my camera was not on, but I was always, every moment I was with you. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you. Well, you know, my friend was telling me recently that when you give a class, everybody hears it on their own level. So each person, according to what they're looking for, that's what they take, because that's where their attention is. So the speaker is speaking something knowing that the audience or those who are listening will take away different things. So it's, of course, you all know this because your teaching, studying, serving students, serving teachers, working in a place of learning. But it's true everywhere. It's a wonderful thing. So thank you for giving me a chance to actually to share with you. It was very beneficial for me. Is our time up? I think so.
Yes, 1 hour has passed. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
So
you, Mataji.
I will see you in a few days.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Hare